Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. The AFL brought out the list of all the AFL fantasy player positions this morning, so I thought that was pretty important, and I thought I'd make a quick video about some of the odds, ins and outs of some of the positions, and just general reactions to a few of them. So let's have a look. So as always, we start off with the defenders, and as always, again, there are a lot of them, and they all do pretty well in comparison to the forward line, I'd say, because that's how the game goes these days. Defenders are just picking up the ball all the time, getting their hands on it, because that's where it starts from. The offense starts from defense a lot in AFL, so they're kicking it around amongst themselves a lot, and these are the main ones to do it up the top here. So at the top 10 here are just lock and loads for next year, obviously. I mean, Nazaya Wanganeen Miller are at number 1 there with Lockie Whitfield, and surprisingly, or no, not too surprisingly, but Rosie has kept his defender status there. He picked that up late last year, and obviously he's a fantastic inside midfielder, and got in that halfback position last year, which is good to see he's retained that one. So Zorko, Sinclair, and Ash to round out the main top 6 defenders there to start us off for next year. All 6 of them just absolute elite ball users, and worthy of probably round 1 or round 2 selection next year at least, I'd say. And Wang at the top there though, Nazaya, 110.8 average. He's a jet. He has to be in contention for like a top 3, a top 5 selection in drafts easy next year. What else? Ash. After Ash, there's a bit of a jump down to Josh Dacos and beyond. 6-point jump there, down to 94. So Josh Dacos, Christian Salem, Laird, Dale. Noble, I think, is the next one there that really had a big bump up from last year. Clark, fantastic guy down back. Mills, pure defender for next year. That's going to be an interesting one because and we all know he's a jet. We all know he can get up to 100. The only question is his body going to stay with him next year? As you can see, 12 games for him last year. So I think it was all at the butt end of the year too. He took a while to get onto the field last year. So see how he goes in preseason. Moving down, and Carl Amon from Hawthorn, another wingman, so gets amongst it in their fast-paced game. He's obviously going to rack it up again. Short, interesting one over the years. He was going a bit bigger a few years ago, but maybe with the interesting way the Tigers have been, his fantasy game hasn't been the most consistent. Bowie, Roberts, Redman, household names, especially Roberts now, I think. And Bowie had a good jump up last year. Caleb Daniel, North Melbourne, defender this year. I think can't remember if he had forward status last year. It was an interesting option. So he's just a defender now. Nick Blakey, the Lizard, absolute jet down the back. His run and carry, always getting the ball in his hands. And some interesting ones here. Tom McCarthy, Jasper Fletcher had fantastic. Tom McCarthy came straight in and just started hitting the ground running, I guess. But Jasper Fletcher was a great one to see explode and really, come out of his shell last year. Found it, forward and on the wing to start off with. And then apparently they wanted him down half back to help out with Zorko and the rest. But we'll see if he stays down there, I guess, with a few different rotations happening down back there now and in the future. Roberts, Rivers, Ryan. So 3 R's there. Ryan, I think, was the biggest downfall from last year. He was always, he's going to be possibly a bit of a sleeper next year if he can get back to what he used to do pretty regularly. But 81.9 is really, really, I think that's really low for him. Same with Tom Stewart there. Another one. He's just struggled to get on the park this year. He's been well and truly up closer to 90 averages in the years past and is an absolute soldier. So I reckon he is going to do a lot better next year as well. So obviously he's a great defender. Darcy Wilmot was a great story from last year as well. He's a fantastic run and carry defender with some explosiveness. Liam Baker, we'll see how he fits in with West Coast going through all their interesting times, but he's got pure defender status, which is interesting to start. I thought he's a bit of utility. He might pick up DPP at some stage. Sam Banks is pretty much his successor at Richmond, almost a bit of a can you fix it kind of guy at Richmond, and he has definitely got the distributing role down back in a troubling time for Richmond, I feel, as well. So he could be an interesting one for next year. Sicily, James Sicily, Hawks boy, down pretty low compared to a few years past. He's always been up closer to mid-90s, so we'll see if he can maybe junk it up a bit more like he used to. But yeah, really poor year for him last year. I think he also struggled a little bit with injury. Another one, Duggan, interesting one. He also was a much, more prolific player in years past. I think he had a bit of a downfall last year. It started really rough for him last year, but perked up towards the end, thank goodness, because it was looking like his career was possibly on the brink. So good, I don't know, it might still be. We'll see how things go at West Coast. Kobe McKercher is a really interesting one. Keen to talk about him over the summer. Defender only. He might get a bit of time in the midfield because in his draft year, he was Zach Merritt. People were saying he was pretty much Zach Merritt 2.0. High accumulator, super fast, great left boot. Really keen for a third-year breakout for him. So that's going to be exciting. Miles Bergman, he was, I can't remember if he was mid-only last year. Maybe he did get defender towards the end. He's still young as well. He's a little bit injured as well last year. Yeah, defender only for him. Himmelberg, Farrell, Floston, Impey. Yeah, some household names there. I think Farrell could be the most interesting one out of that little patch there. Bailey Williams of the Bulldogs is definitely a bit more of a wingman than a defender, I feel. So, and same with Zach Guthrie, actually. Fantastic speedy options down the side, I feel. Guthrie, I guess, might have been taking a few more kick-ins last year because Tommy Stewart was, struggling to get on the park. Hollins, another one that's been waiting to break out. Yeah, that could be an interesting defender. Yeah, these guys are all pretty household defender names. Not really any surprises that they are defenders, a lot of them. Ryan Marich, maybe. I think he was a forward last year, but he was taking kick-ins early. So not surprised to see he's a defender only. McGrath there, could he be getting a bit more of a role this year? He's pure defender, so maybe he'll be distributing a bit more. We'll see. Burgoyne, Jace Burgoyne, he was mid-only. So he's got defender again, plus DPP. So it's interesting. Kitty Coleman, another super interesting one for next year. If he can get on the park, look out. Miller, Rioli, Humphreys. That's an interesting little patch there of defenders. All been defenders in the past and all could have much better seasons than last year. I think especially Rioli. In fact, all of them. Interesting breakout options in the lower end of the defenders. But at this point, you still got defenders in closer to 70 average, and we are well and truly past the 50 player point here, I think. So just the depth of defenders is there's a lot for this year. So interesting ones. A couple more sliders here, I reckon, could be Mitch Hinge there of Adelaide. He was well and truly up in the 80s a few years ago. Obviously, Dan Houston was also a fantastic distributor back at Port Adelaide, but his first year at Collingwood was just not good at all. See if he can come back. Brady Hoff is one that's supposed to break out soon. Same with Cowan, possibly, with Doherty now gone. He had a bit of an uptick at the back end of last year. Scroll down a bit, there's not too much at this point. Some breakouts potentially in, I want to say like Connor O'Sullivan could be an interesting one. He's pipped to be a very important position at the Cats. Could be a little way off transitioning to a more prominent role. Tom Brown of the Tigers, I like. Riley Bice as well had a bit of a interesting start and then has kind of dragged off a bit. Luca Grego, that's going to be an interesting one. I wonder if the Eagles will play him a bit more. That's a draft pick from last year. So, yeah, got on the park. West Coast gonna be super, super interesting this year. So he could be one to keep an eye on if you're looking for a weird defender option. Jinby, Ruben Jinby of West Coast, another West Coast, who knows kind of guy. He's had a few games now though, so could see him finally take a leap. Caulfield has been on there forever. I feels like he's still not that old, but yeah, who knows what's happening with him. Hopefully he had a bit of pedigree about him to begin with, but just can't get the games. So someone that is getting games, though, is Luke Traynor in his first season at Richmond. Did like him in his draft year because he was potentially a top 5 pick at one point, and he slid a long way on his draft years. So how Richmond's going, he could be a very interesting one for 2026. Max Michelini from Adelaide has been meant to pop off in the last few years, so we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, still adjusting things down back. Worrell was one that I missed earlier, but he brings a big fantasy game in recent times, I think, but he's also been injured. Anyway, Adelaide will be interesting to see how they go. And then we get into some real speculative ones, some high draft picks there. Finn O'Sullivan has defender status, so that's kind of interesting. Chankuth Giath at his new club, Melbourne, also interesting. Jacob Ware, let me know how to say that one. Jacob Ware of Port Adelaide. Not sure what Port Adelaide's doing. They didn't do much they haven't done much in the off season so far. They had one pickup in the rookie draft and a couple of trades obviously there. So see how they're going to go in the off season. Maybe he's got a role. Who else interests me? Not much there. A couple of high draft picks again. Alexander Taru could be one. Where was there? Oh yes, up here. Sorry, I must have scrolled past. Toby Travalia from last year, also an interesting one for this year. Could he get a second year breakout? Only had 11 games last year, so plenty to see from him still. Josh Sin from Port Adelaide also meant to have a bit more of a role. He's been talked about a lot in recent years, so yeah, could we see him have a bit of a bump up in his stats? Scrolling. James Leake has been one spoken about a bit at the Giants. He's got defender forward status, which is kind of interesting if he can get a game. We'll have to wait and see there. Another one to watch on the preseason. Zane Dersma, another one. Interesting enough, has defender forward status. Has usually just been that forward option though. So, if they do deploy him down back, who knows? Obviously, we missed out on seeing Nick Newman last year with his season-ending injury, so fingers crossed we could get him back on the park early next year. He should be right back up, you'd hope, into the top 10 or maybe top 20 with how the defenders are looking this year. There's a lot of defenders, and this is a big chunk of it, I reckon. So there's lots to talk about with defenders this year because there's just so much happening. Kondo Giannis was a good one in the draft. Name to remember for the future. Harry Dean, fantastic pickup for Carlton there. I talked about in my earlier video about the draft. If you missed that one, go back and have a look. There's some great names coming through in the draft. Speaking of, Zeke Hewland, the number 2 pick from this year's draft, has defender status to start his career, which I thought was really interesting. He might hit the ground running, which is really exciting. Already played VFL. Smashed his first year of his draft career, but was out with a bit of injury. But he is well and truly locked and loaded, I think, to start the year. And Dylan Patterson as well, the fellow draftee from this year, who, again, very, very highly touted to get an early game next year and be just a staple in the side early, I think. So definitely one to keep an eye on there, Dylan Patterson, for an early game in 2026. Couple more rookies there, and Sam Grill, one pipped at Richmond to hopefully get a game early. Apparently he is ready-made for AFL and, could very easily slot into Richmond with their restructuring. And at the butt end of the defenders here, a few interesting ones. Kai Fincher is a St Kilda NGA product, and they bid on him in this year's draft, and he could be an interesting prospect with how St Kilda love to play their defenders, and yeah, really the defenders at St Kilda rack up the points, as you could see earlier with Sinclair and Wanganeen Millera, the top two of the top six, and they're both from St Kilda. So always keep an eye on St Kilda defenders. I feel they are always worth a look. Josh Lindsay, who went to West Coast in this year's draft, he could be that direct Duggan replacement, or Shannon Hearn. He's a distributor from the halfback, and yeah, I reckon he could be getting a game early. I reckon he'll be distributing the ball a lot for the Eagles. And the last one I want to talk about there is Lachlan Carmichael at the very bottom, defender mid, went to the Western Bulldogs, was Sydney Swans Academy prospect, had a fantastic draft year, was averaging 100 in the under-18 championships, and also 96 or something in the Coates Talent League. And it has just been a fantastic, it's had a great draft career so far. And interesting to see if he can get a spot early. Alrighty, some midfielders here. The ones that have dual position won't be listed, so any mid forwards or mid defenders not listed here. There's pure midfielders and some guys that might not like to see as pure midfielders, to be honest. And starting off there with Bailey Smith, had forward status last year, but he is pure mid now at Geelong. No forward status for him. He averaged 116 last year, though. That was incredible. 20 games, though. So, yeah, a few of the top guys here, top 10 here, had huge averages. Maybe not as big as years past, but you can see in the top 10, a few guys missed a few games, too. So, starting off, Bailey Smith, absolute jet. Bontempelli, say no more. Jordan Dawson, Nick Dacos, maybe he'd been a defender in years past. Pure mid only this year. Yeah, these guys are no-brainers in your first round of your draft. Josh Dunkley, another one. I think he averaged a little bit lower last year, but still one to just lock and load for this year. And then it takes a little bit of a drop there. Caldwell is the next best midfielder with a 4-point drop there, 107 to 103. Interesting. There goes bang bang Essendon too with Zach Merritt, 102. That'll be interesting one this year. He's just relinquished the captaincy and obviously had those trade requests to Hawthorn that didn't go through. So it's going to be a very awkward year for him. Will he ton up? I'd like to think he's still going to get close to a ton. Surely. It's Zach Merritt. Errol Goulden, I feel like he could average more next year. He had a slow start. He barely got on the field for the first bit. But still made the top 10 midfielders for next year. So if he can get a preseason ready to go. Hugh McCluggage, Matt Rowell, Brayshaw, a couple of top draft picks from a few years ago now, but all hitting triple digits now, which is great to see. They're all right on the cusp a few years ago. Triple digits now. Scroll down. And a couple of interesting ones now. Max Holmes took that leap to the triple digits last year. He's the last of the triple-digit midfielders for next year, though, because Zach Butters, Libba, Noah Anderson, yeah, locked and loaded. Fantastic choices. I think Anderson, actually, I was expecting him to go a bit higher last year. I thought he could get well above 105, but still just not doing his best away from home. I feel he just doesn't get as much of it when he's at the away grounds. It's that simple. Very strange problem he's got. Hopefully he can rectify that. Finn Callahan was a fantastic story from last year. 99 after, I think, previously in the 80s perhaps. And yeah, had a fantastic third or fourth year breakout for him. George Hewitt, I think he's very underrated at Carlton. People just don't talk about him enough, but he's the best midfielder for Carlton last year. So say no more. Tom Green, 97. Again, interesting at the Giants, especially now that Clayton Oliver's there. 2 guys gunning it up, big bodies in the midfield. Is that going to affect Tom Green? We'll see. Isaac Heaney, mid-only, not forward, unfortunately. Ed Richards, not defender, so just mid-only. Matt Kennedy, the same, not forward anymore. Jack Steele, a little bit of a drop-off here as well. 95 average for him. Mid-only as always, though, and he's at Demons. So that's going to be very interesting, I think, with Max Gawn. And then a fantastic one here. Who doesn't like Will Ashcroft? I mean, unless, you're a finalist in the grand finals the last couple of years because he tore you to shreds. But Will Ashcroft averaged 95.5 last year. And I just think he's going to jump up even more next year. So look out for him. Fantastic. I reckon it could be a top round 2 pick. I wouldn't be mad at picking him in the second round next year. I reckon he's going to be a flyer. And right below him, Chera from Carlton had a pretty good season. Held it together, his body, which was good. And 95 average for him. But yeah, mid-only, obviously. Lockie Neal there taking a little bit of a dive from previous year's averages. A little bit of off-field injuries and things, I think, as well. Same with Tim Taranto there as well, you could say. And the next one, Sam Walsh. All these guys have been 107 plus averages before, and they have, look at them, averaging 93 there. So definitely some value to think about there. Same with the next couple, actually. Miller, McRae, Oliver, Sarong, all these guys, low 90s, high 80 averages from last year. And they have all averaged, or maybe not Sarong, but all those guys have averaged over 105 averages previously. So some crazy value. It's interesting how it's changed so quickly. But is there some value there? Sarong, the most interesting one there, maybe. He played 23 games and is still very young and is potentially still, I think he did have 100 plus or nearer to 100 average 1 year. So I'm thinking he could get back up there again. Then there's some household names here that are just going to be the staples, but they might not be the biggest fantasy ones in Ollie Wines, Patrick Cripps, Jack Viney, LDU. Like, these guys have always been that mid-90s tier midfielders, and you can see they've all kind of dropped into the 80s there, which is interesting, actually. Tom Atkins, and Tom Atkins, I'd say, is the feel-good story there. He was a bull for Geelong last year, and very unsung one. So a lot of unsung heroes here. Chad Warner, not forward status anymore, bit disappointing, but hopefully he does up his average from this year because he was more of a 90 plus midfielder of years past. One of my favourites there, Tom Powell. He bumped his average up a little bit last year, and I've always said he's going to be getting closer and closer to triple digits as his career progresses, I think. And I hope he can get closer to 90 this year. I think that would be good to just keep the progression going. Will Day, I love Will Day, but he just 6 games last year, which is really disappointing. Everyone was hyped. Whenever he got on the field, people were keen, but the next week he just broke down. And yeah, if he can get a preseason going this year, and just want him to stay on the park, it's the main thing. Even if he stays or just gets up in closer to 90 as well, don't need to push it too hard. Will just stay on the park and get the games in, man. Like, you're too good to not be on the field. So Will Day could be a steal. Just need to get your body right. Luke Parker, North Melbourne, mid-only. That's a bit disappointing, I think. Forward status for him was really the bonus that I was keen for in years past. Will he stay up there with an 80? We'll see. Scott Pendlebury, say no more. Well, actually, maybe say a little bit. He's 37, 30, mid to later 30s. Still 86 average these days. Maybe he was off the park a little bit because, 37. But still doing well. He wants to keep going. So if you can pick him up later, which I'm sure he will slide on draft day, why not? M6, M7, chuck in Pendles again. Newcomb should be, I want him to pop. I want him to get over 90 again. So just needs to bring that tackling back. I think we'll just get him up there again. Side bottom, same as Pendery. Repeat what I just said. Braden Fiorini at Essendon with Darcy Parish right beneath him there is interesting. Both of them are actually pigs, but Fiorini hasn't had the chances and Parish has been injured. So two different problems there. Fiorini might get his problem fixed quicker than Parrish, perhaps, but I'm just not sold still, but we'll have to wait and see with preseason. Berry, Hopper, Crisp, some household names there to pick up later on midfielders. Saligo, I think that should be one to have on your radar. Jake Saligo is still very, very young, and he's meant to be a pig at Adelaide. Matt Crouch is well and truly gone now. A few like other big names still in the middle there. Obviously, you got Dawson and Laird. But I think Saligo's the main next one, and just another year older. I think he'll be closer to a 90 average. Jason Horne-Francis lost forward status. That's disappointing. 82 average, though. Not too bad compared to previous years. Still not overly keen. Marcus Windhager, thought he might have been a defender, but he's pure mid. Josh Kelly is going to be out for a while. Dion Prestia, not too keen. Sorry, Richmond fans. I think he needs to either have a great year this year or that's it, I reckon. Xavier Dersma, Rowbottom, household names, but they just don't bring the high ceilings, and they do have some low scores at this point. Durham could still be anything. I do like Durham. Ned Long, Josh Ward, here's some value here, I think. Ned Long and Ward are high, prolific inside ball winners that are just waiting to pop, I feel. Levi Ashcroft, another Ashcroft, obviously, in his second year coming up. 74 in his first year. I think he had forward status last year, but mid only now. He could be in the same. Well, I reckon he will potentially progress quicker than his brother, actually, as far as being an inside mid and hopefully staying fit is the other thing his brother didn't do in his first and second year. But we could see him explode, the Ashcroft blood. Warple at Geelong should be interesting. Hopefully he can get back up past 80. Kane McAuliffe, get on the park, son. If you just get on the park and stay in the team, you will get up past an 80 average. I guarantee you. If he can stay on the field, Kane McAuliffe, lock him in for a plus 80 average. We got Ollie Dempsey, mid only. That's a bit disappointing. I thought he would hopefully regain some forward status, but he's been a great wingman. Matt Johnson, interesting perspective one. Still waiting for him to kick off and really punch in some numbers. D'Ambrosio took a big slump last year. That was a bit sad to see. It was just an influx of talent and all the Hawks are sharing the ball around now. So, yeah, interesting to see Hawthorn players go up and down a bit. George Wardlaw there. Been waiting for him to really step his game up in the last few years, but he just hasn't been able to stay on the park. He keeps having niggles and just not quite popping in a lot of games. He has little spurts, but then falls off a cliff again. So here's hoping he can get a solid preseason going. Harley Reid, obviously, inside midfielder at the Eagles for this year. No forward status though. So yeah, third year for him though. Third year now. So we'll have to wait and see if he can take that leap. I reckon he can. Hugo Garcia is mid only, unfortunately. I think he was a forward. We'll have to wait and see. Another one that could pop. Dan Curtin, mid only, unfortunately. Not forward, not defender, just a mid now. So whether that's a sign of a bump in numbers, hopefully. But another third year breakout to think about. Down here, Nathan O'Driscoll I like. I think he is another Fremantle boy. There's like 3 or 4 Fremantle guys waiting to step it up. Harvey Langford at the Demons. I think that's going to be great. I think he's going to boost his numbers a lot this year. He's going to get closer to an 80, I'm thinking, by the end. If not higher, because it's just Jack Steele, Jack Viney, and then I feel he's the third banana there now. So that's exciting. I reckon he's going to have a great one. Cam McKenzie hopefully can do something. High draft pick from a few years ago. Keen to see him pop. Same with Angus Sheldrick, top 20 pick from a few years ago now, sorry. And I expect big things from him this year, especially with the sub rule gone. And I think Dean Cox likes him, and I think he's going to be amongst it this year. And hopefully just don't get subbed off, and that will be an 80 average plus. Isaac Cumming was talked about a bit. Hunter Clark's been talked about over the years. Elijah Hewitt, another one that I know Eagles fans love. Florence at Carlton, and he's not defender, he's just a midfielder, so that's a bit disappointing. Stephen Cornelio there, midfielder only, also a bit disappointing. And his career last year in particular just fell off a cliff. We'll have to see though. Josh Kelly is out, and who knows? Maybe Cornelio can bring it back. I think he's on the way out though. Who else? Neil Erasmus, the third Freo guy that I'm keen for. It could be the main Freo guy I'm keen for, actually. No substitute rule for him in particular. I think we're going to see big things from him. If he can get on the park next year, look out. It could be 75 plus, closer to an 80 average. He smashed the waffle, smashed the numbers in the waffle over the last few years, waiting to break into the team. So come on, son. You just got to break that 23 now. The sub's gone. You're on the field. So make the most of it. Clay Hall, another one out west, could be a third-year breakout for him. Another fantastic inside midfielder, one that they don't talk about as much. Harley Reid, now Willem Dosma, the two number ones are there. No one cares about the pick 40 or 38 or something from a few years ago. This guy can play, and I am keen to see him get on the park a bit more next year. Xavier Lindsay, another draft pick from last year's draft, who I think another one that will benefit from Oliver and Petrarca's departure. Interesting. Hopefully he can get amongst it, get in the middle a bit more, maybe even get down back. We'll see if he can get a DPP at some stage this year. Elijah Tsadas there, another one that's supposed to be, he was a number 5 pick, I think, a few years back now, but just hasn't done anything. And this is push or shove. Push comes to shove now, mate. You got to do something this year, or this could be it. But if he does, Essendon, who knows? Maybe. Harry Schoenberg made it to West Coast. That was an interesting one. Keep an eye on him on a very young West Coast lineup. And some guys that hadn't played a game last year or got drafted in this year's draft in Ben Camporelli last year, Jack Eisen, Jagger Smith. Carlton fans are very excited for all of these guys. I think Jagger Smith in particular, pick 3 from last year's draft, ACL last year. Want to see him on the park, and he was insane in his draft year. So if he can get on the field, that is a fantastic one to have as a depth option. Or even if you're feeling ballsy, pick him up M5, M6. His preseason is going to be real interesting. Sam Swadling, I like. Another one from this year's crop, but Collingwood, wait and see if they even play him. They love to play their old boys. Dyson Sharp from Essendon, Boyhood Club. He is high draft pick from this year. Highly prolific midfielder from this year's draft who slid to 14 this year, which was interesting. And he could hit the ground running. I think he'll be there round 1. And with the way Essendon is, with the way things are with Zach Merritt, and I reckon he was going to hit the ground running. And midway through next year, household name. Tanner Brun is free to play. Yay! He'll be back on the park next year, so look out for him. He was an up-and-comer a few years ago until some off-field mishaps, unfortunately. Harley Barker won't make it on the field. Hunter Holmes, the brother of Max. We'll see if Geelong want to play him at all next year. A lot of these guys I've talked about in my draft video, actually. So if you want to see some draftees a bit more in depth, look at that video. Bo Adensol, we talk about. Kobe Colson a little bit. All these Gold Coast guys here. Ollie Greaves is one that got picked up in the rookie draft. We all thought he'd be an early one on draft day, but he slid to the rookie draft. But Hawthorn picked him up, thank goodness. Who else we got? Watkins, Jack Watkins. Interesting one for Port Adelaide. He rookie drafted their only pick this year, so they must see something in him. And he's a mature ager as well, so he could hit the ground running. Josh Smiley, Sam Cumming, two high picks from Richmond the last couple of years. They need to get on the field because they could genuinely make a difference. And then a couple of very big names to finish off here. Elliot Yeo has been a big name. He's an old Eagle over the years, made of glass. Pick him up as a depth option. I'll have to see how his preseason plays out. Can he get back to any kind of form? Not holding my breath. Javan Philippou there, just above, went to Sydney in the end. And that is an interesting one. Brother of Mateus. And I do like that he is an inside and outside midfielder, this guy. Kind of has that grunt about him like his brother. And yeah, that could be an interesting one at Sydney as well. But there's a bit of a lineup there for players. And finally, the last one I'll say here is the number one draft pick from this year in Willem Dersma. He is set to be the next big thing, obviously, likened to Bontempelli a lot. And yeah, a bit of a fix-it though. He just can play anywhere. He can play forward, back, midfield. Yeah, interesting to see where he lines up come round one. But that could easily be like a lot of these guys, chuck them on your bench at the end of your drafts. That's going to be fantastic ones to keep an eye on for 2026. Here we go with the rucks now, and pretty quick one here because there's really one, maybe two rucks on every team that you have to talk about. And we're not even going to talk about all of them here, just a couple of main ones because this is really just about positions. These guys are all ruckmen. They've been ruckmen for years. And there's not much I don't think is going to change too much this year in the top 10. Gawn, going to go again. He's getting older, but he's going to do it again. English, Grundy, Marshall, Cherry. Like, these guys are top 5 easy. I think everyone was a bit surprised. Grundy got back to it last year, which is great to see. But the rucks really exploded last year. With the rule changes, that's going to be weird this year. So maybe some of these more aerobic rucks like Luke Jackson or Darcy Cameron or Tom de Koning maybe down there, Sam Draper, a little more aerobic rucks are going to be a bit more advantageous this year with the new rules. So maybe players like Riley O'Brien, Jared Witts, especially those centre bounce new rules. I think that these big stalwart ruckmen are going to be affected a bit more because it's going to be turning into a jumping rucks game. So I think the springier ruckmen are going to take flight a bit more. And so yeah, Luke Jackson, Tom de Koning, maybe even Jordan Sweet could take a bump. Not really any surprises as far as ruckmen go. Sean Darcy, unfortunate fall from grace over the years, and I think it's going to be similar next year, unfortunately. I think Luke Jackson has taken the mantle well and truly at Fremantle now. And yeah, just the new rules again. Not going to help Sean Darcy's case at all. Mark Pitternet is going to be number 1 ruckman at Carlton. That's going to be weird. Or Liam Reedy is the other option there. So I'm not sure who will be number 1 come round 1. So keep an eye on the Carlton situation. Kieran Briggs, actually, another one who had a wayward year last year. He was up, he was down, 70 average in the end, which really poor, really. He was right up in the 80s, I thought, last year. So maybe he can bring it back. Needs to start jumping again, though. And yeah, I don't know, it feels like he might be that kind of stalwarty ruckman more than the aerobic type, perhaps. And then some real rookie ruckman as we scroll down. Nick Madden perhaps might have a bit more role. Dante Vicentini perhaps gets the Port Adelaide gig a bit more. Nick Bryan Essendon is going to be interesting. These are young guys that have been in the system for a while. Can they make a difference? We'll see. There's Liam Reedy down there who has ruck forward status, actually. Yeah, there's a few of these guys have the forward status. Sorry. Unfortunately, Luke Jackson does not have the forward status for the ruck. He's just a ruckman, unfortunately, this year. Sam Draper was the first ruck forward there, followed by Jake Riccardi, who's a ruck forward as well for the Giants. I think that's because Briggs was out a bit and Madden didn't make it in either. So, not not really anything else that's popping off to me as far as ruckman go. Ivan Soldo, don't think he's going to have the role. No, there's really not a whole lot happening. Mitch Edwards, possibly Conway, the Geelong situation's interesting. Conway, I thought might have been something. He was injured last year, so maybe he can bring it back. A couple down here. Cooper Duff Tytler was the main ruckman from this year's draft, so if he can get a role early, he might be a good forward option as a deep forward. Maybe not a ruckman, but yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch. He'll take a bit of time to get going, though. All right, on to the forwards now, which I think is the most interesting position in the whole batch of positions because this is a real supply and demand situation here in the forward line of years past, where, as you can see from a top 10 forward line there, it drops off pretty quickly, especially compared to defenders and midfielders. I'd relate them to defenders more because, I don't know, it just seems like there's the same amount of them. They do the same, they fight each other at the end of the grounds, I guess. So I like to think years ago they might have been at the same level, fantasy-wise, but in the last 5 to 10 years, it really has swayed. It's a defender's man's game. The best forwards are actually midfielders and defenders who get forward and got lucky to get the forward status. So here's the main example here in the first two there, at least. Harry Sheezel is the number one forward for this year, and he definitely got forward a bit last year, but he is definitely the guy in the midfield and defense, I feel, because he is a great distributor of the ball. And same with Nick Martin there, who is going to miss most of next year, by the way. So the number 2 forward isn't even going to be on the park for the first half a season. So really, your number 2 forward to start the year there is Brian Myers at 93.8 average. So drop off from 16, almost a 15 and a half point drop off between number 1 forward and number 2. So if you can get a hold of Harry Sheezel this year, I think he's going to be easily top 3 pick in drafts come 2026. And some great ones after that, but it does drop off in Christian Petrarca at Gold Coast, his new club. That's going to be interesting. Sean Manag, I am so keen on Manag. He is manic, and he had a fantastic mature age career for Werribee, and he just brought that into his second season at Geelong, brought that mature age experience. He's a mongrel. He's great. I love to watch him play. So he is essentially your 4th or 5th best forward to start the season next year, which is exciting. Kazaya Pickett has, mid-forward, same as Petrarca, and Sheezel. Mid-forward status there for Kazaya and Isaac Rankin. So 87 average there for both of those guys. Rankin will not be playing the first couple of rounds, though, with that suspension. So look out for that. Jeremy Cameron, of course, he's been a top 10 forward for the last few years. Zach Bailey was an interesting inclusion to the top 10 last year, I think. He had a great season. He played 22 games, which is awesome. Jai Simpkin, another midfielder who gets forward, which is, he has been around that top 10 forward mark for the last few years. Riley Thilthorpe. Now, that was a feel-good story last year. He was a monster up forward, just taking marks for fun, and really took the Tex Walker mantle last year. I think he just he grew and put on so much weight over like a year or two when he was off the field, I think, and came back an absolute freak. Same as the guy 2 below him there, Sam Darcy, who was his 2nd or 3rd year last year, and he was just plucking marks for fun as well. So some really exciting tall forwards close to the top 10 there, which is exciting. Sam Draper as well for Brisbane. Didn't actually talk about him too much in the rucks, but he has that forward status. And Big Oscar McInerney is gone, and Darcy Fort's the only other ruckman really. So if Sam Draper can actually play some games, we could very well see him staying up near that 82 average, maybe even pushing it further. And especially with that ruck forward status, that could be juicy for next year. Who else we got? Let's go. Dylan Moore, one of my favourites from the Hawks. Slipped a bit down from previous year's averages, but keeps that forward status. And I reckon he could be like a little bit of a diamond in the first few rounds next year. He averages closer to 90 or higher 80s in the last few years. So look out for him on draft day. Same with Toby Green, you might say. He has definitely been better in years past, but I keep forgetting he's closer to my age, I guess. So, yeah, he could be closer to the end of his career. So, new boys coming in. He's the captain, though. He's going to be there every week, and he's still got that dog about him, I reckon. So, he could be a good F2, F3, perhaps. Ben Keys, Mr. Fluctuation, just loves to have a big week and then take it down a notch so far down the next week. Sometimes he just falls off the map, which is a bit scary. Justin McInerney has forward status, which is handy. He's been mid-only last few years. Harry McKay, the main man at Carlton now that Kerno's gone, so maybe we'll see him be the one and only target next year. Or maybe we'll see some new faces at Carlton like Liam Reedy get forward or something and take that role again. Schultz, Ginnivan. Ginnivan had a good year last year, to be honest. He really picked up his game, played 22 games as well. Feel like I didn't hear about him being as much of a dickhead, but, he's going to bring that vibe. He's going to bring that dog as well, and people are going to hate him, but 75 average, not too bad. Brad Hill has forward status. Langdon as well, two wingmen with forward status. Always handy. They could be bringing big weeks, but they're both veterans, so yeah, they got legs. They can keep running forever. Jack Gunston, forward, of course. Peter Wright, forward. Not a ruckman, though. Jack Ross has been speculated on last few years. Hopefully he can cement a good midfield role. Hopefully at Richmond. Hopefully he can. Rayner. Oh, no. Actually, so Joel Frazier there is a very interesting one for the next 10 plus years. He has forward status, not a defender anymore, so forward status now. But he did have his draft year as a defender, and he started his career as a defender. I think he got bevoed a little bit last year. Yeah, always got that chance of being bevoed at the Dogs. So hopefully he can also get into the midfield perhaps as well. Maybe get that midfield time. Same with Cam Rayner. He's obviously a number one draft pick a few years ago. Obviously a fantastic forward, always going to be a forward. Shai Bolton, another great forward who's died off. And one of the most interesting ones here, Adam Treloar is back to being a forward. And I didn't even notice him all the way down here at a 69.8 average. Because, I forgot he didn't even play much last year. Only played 4 games, Treloar. So one to really keep an eye on this preseason. Just an absolute freak. He's been inside bull, a pig for a few years, a few different clubs, and to see him all the way down there is just travesty, absolute debacle. He's going to be well and truly up close to the 90s again if he can play. So forward status could be a top 5 forward next year. Same with this guy, a few scrolls down here. Sam Flanders went to the Saints this year, and they need a midfielder, to be honest. They've got McRae, they've got maybe Philippou, they got Steele's gone, Sinclair. They need someone else in there. And Sam Flanders was in there at the Gold Coast until this influx of kids last year, I feel. And he got pushed out. He's gone. Yeah, he was like, nope, these kids are coming for my gig. I got to find a new one. And maybe this is it. Sam Flanders at St Kilda with forward status could be juicy next year. Connor McDonald from Hawthorn. I like him. I thought he'd be getting closer to 80 last year, but just that inconsistency of the Hawthorn game plan. It hits hard, it's winning games, but it's not fantasy friendly sometimes. So hopefully he can get back up past the 70, 75 mark next year. Riley Sanders is one of my favourites over the last couple of years. I reckon he could be in for his best year yet. He's an inside midfielder by trade, and he was a Lark medalist in his draft year, which is pretty much the best and fairest, or the Brownlow for the draft class, essentially the Coates Talent League and stuff. So, not the Coates Talent. Anyway, won his Brownlow in the draft year, essentially. And he's an inside midfielder that racks it up. And I'd love to see him be amongst it with Bont and Libba more, especially if Trelaw's still not back or something like that. One of those guys might not be there. And I think Riley Sanders is the next best one. Oh, and there's Ed Richards. Oh, there's too many of the dogs. I think he'll be on the boat to Tassie when Tassie comes in, to be honest. But forward status this year, that's the exciting part. So maybe he could be a top 20 forward by the end of the year, I'd like to think. Charlie Curnow there was the big trade in the offseason. He's off to Sydney into that team that's pumping inside 50s day in, day out, with the forwards maybe not living up to it. So I'm sure Sydney's keen for that. Was averaging into the 80s in the last few years before last year, I think. And I'd like to think with that midfield pumping in the inside 50s and a better mantra, maybe he could get back to a 75 plus average, if not past that 80 mark again. Same with the guy a few down there in Jesse Hogan, another one that fell off the map of this year or last year. Was up closer to a top 10, top 20 forward not long ago either. So one that could bring his game back up a bit if he can stay on the park. 15 games there last year. That's always concerning for a full forward. Darcy Wilson, running machine on the wing. I'd like to think he will make a big impact at the Saints the longer his career goes on. He is just he was a big accumulator in his draft year. And I feel like, this could be his third year breakout, to be honest. I am a big fan of Darcy Wilson. Just an absolute machine. Patrick Dangerfield down here has pure forward status for next year. Pure forward, not a midfielder. So signs of things to come, maybe. This could be his last run at it, and I think they just want to see him kick a bag or two. Why not? Why not, Danger? Go for your life. Couple down there in Tim Kelly, mid-forward. Could be an interesting one. Again, not hugely keen on that, though, because I think it's shifting at West Coast, and I don't think he's a big part of it anymore. Just in honesty, might get on the field, might have a good game or two, but I mean, he had 20 games last year, and he still averaged 63, which was it's a real stinkers last year. So maybe that's a sign to he's got forward status. They're just going to push him up that end and see if he can bring some experience, I guess. Josh Treacy is meant to pop. He's been the full forward option at Fremantle, I feel. And he has definitely got some X factor about him. Whether he can bring that consistently, though, is what fantasy coaches want. So we'll have to wait and see if he can do that week in, week out. Still young, still pretty young, I think. So this could be the one, though. Maybe we'll see him make his way up into the top 40, 30 forwards would be pretty cool. Because not a big jump, to be honest. We're into the 60s at this point, and a top 20 ruckman is someone in the 80s. So it's really not a big bump up with forwards here to make it into the top 30, because, even the top ones aren't that great this year, unfortunately. We're going to have to wait for the DPPs to arrive in week 6, 12, and 18. But where were we here? Josh Rochelle, another high draft pick. Forward, though. Pure forward. Pure small forward, I feel. I don't know if he's going to be in the midfield, I'll be honest. I just don't see it happening. I don't think that's where he does his best work. He's a forward, and I just don't see him getting up to that next level from a fantasy perspective anyway. He's got a great kick on him. He's a great kicker goal, but just don't see him bringing the numbers. A couple of interesting forwards, like forwards that have been around for a while. Tom Papley, Stengel, Archie at Adelaide, the Sneeze, it could be interesting. There's a couple of I'm not sure about here. Ben Ainsworth at Carlton could be a shout. I do like a reshuffle for someone that has had a bit of a rough run at their previous club. Go to a new club. Maybe it'll be greener on the other side. Hopefully he can get back. 'Cause I thought he was closer to like a 70 average over the years. So I'd like to think he's that kind of player. Braden Campbell could be an interesting one for next year for Sydney. He's one that suffered a lot with the substitute rule. And with that rule now abolished, he will hopefully be straight on the park all games and not be suffering these shitty averages for getting no time on ground. So if he gets time on ground, I feel like he could get at least a little bit of a bump next year. He's again a top 10 draft pick from a few years ago. And just one that should be popping, you'd think, at this point. So hopefully he can benefit from the new rule. Will Hayward, new Carlton full forward, essentially. He might be right up there with Harry McKay, sorry. He's probably the second banana now, I'd have to say, up front for Carlton. And he's great. I mean, he brought some fantastic scores in previous years. Maybe not so much last year, but it's definitely one that's been talked about a lot. Will Graham, that's an interesting, and Murphy Reed, actually, two recent draftees that I feel have some real, go about them, especially Murphy Reed, I think. His bag of 4 last year, 4 or 5, was it? Just sublime. He's real goer, that guy. And he's only going to be in his second year this year coming. So look out for him. Will Graham, I think it's his third year third year for him. So another one to look out for with that forward status. Sam Lawler down there, he'll have a second year breakout potentially. He's that big body, still was working on his body last year. So hopefully he can get on the park a bit more. Billy Dowling is one that interests me there. He is actually a pure inside midfielder that plays for Adelaide. Mainly plays for the Sandful though, in the twos. So if he can get on with that, I don't know, Matt Crouch retiring will make a big difference for him. But I feel like he is just a real goer and he's going to get amongst it. He is an accumulator. And if he can get games, he will average more than what he's averaging there, for sure. It's going to be much closer to a 70 or an 80 if he can get on the field. And maybe another one that benefits from this sub-rule being abolished. It's real mixed bag of forwards here. I'm just not super interested in. It really is supply and demand when it comes to forwards. And there is not much supply. It's high demand. Top tier guys are where it's at because once you get past the 30, 40, maybe 50th forward, it gets into some real speculative territory, I think. And we could be waiting on some breakouts here. I'm not going to go through all these guys because some of these guys could have a lot of upside, but they just haven't shown enough for me to talk about it right now. And Liam Reedy could get that. Since he's got ruck forward status, that could be a good one to look at in the off-season. Especially if he does get the number 1 ruck role, that could well and truly be a 70-plus average, even for a second-tier ruck, or someone like a 75 average from a ruck that's also a forward. That's a top 20 forward or top 30 forward if he can get number 1 ruck role. So that could be interesting. The rucks that are forwards could be really interesting for the forwards perspective. Mateus Philippou down there, 35 average. He needs to get on the park and play some games because he's just been struggling with injury. And when he does, I think he'll be the second or third midfielder in the middle next to, oh God, it's not Jack Steele anymore. I think I just said, no, Jack McRae. That's who it is. The other Jack. Yeah, he'll be right after Jack McRae, I feel. Or maybe Jack Sinclair. Jack, and Mateus. Yeah, no, not too sure after that. There's really not a whole lot of forwards I'm super keen on there. Leo Lombard, actually, there's one. Leo Lombard, high draft pick from last year's draft. Gold Coast Academy player. Had a rough run in the first year, was injured a bit. Inside midfielder again, or out. He's a midfielder. He's not a pure forward. And could be a little bit bump in his game next year. Could get closer to a 60 or a 70, I'd like to think. And hell, if he gets lucky, could get an inside mid role because that's where he should be. Devon Robertson went to West Coast. He had potential at Brisbane and he's got experience. So another one to look at over the off-season for sure, especially with forward status. And then a whole bunch of draftees and interesting players that didn't get games last year. So maybe Lincoln McCarthy could be one that you chuck on your bench as a depth pick. Brisbane, they're going to be up forward a lot. I think they're keen to bring him back into the best 22. Yeah, Sullivan Roby, good. Like Christopher Trucker, Dustin Martin, protege from this year's draft. Could take a bit to get going, but also mid forward for Essendon. So we'll have to see if he can hit the ground running. Latrell Pickett is another one, forward option there that could hit the ground running straight off the bat. Mature, or 20, was he 20-year-old that just got drafted in this year's draft, so a little bit older than the other draftees. Went to Melbourne with his cousin Cozzy, so that could be an interesting mix if he can get a game. He's got some real X factor about him, and yeah, it could be a sneaky depth option. And a couple down the end here, actually, for West Coast again. Really interesting for West Coast this year. Fred Rodriguez, for one, is an inside midfielder from this year's crop of draftees. He's got forward status straight off the bat for the first year, and people think he could hit the ground running very, very early in 2026. He had a fantastic, as I said, draft year out west, playing in the Colts, and yeah, just has a huge accumulating pedigree about him as a midfielder. So another one has the forward status. Keen to keep an eye on him. People are keen on Sam Allen as well, who is a prolific player this year in the Coates Talent League, I think. Tyler Williams is an NGA product for them, so he could get games early. Finn McRae, Collingwood midfielder, I was hoping was going to make a splash, but got delisted, and now West Coast has picked him up. Has experience, could get a game early because he is going to be older than a lot of the other guys at West Coast at this point. And yeah, I don't know, that could be another one. You know, he's really had hit or miss. Obviously missed a bit more than hit in his career so far, but a fresh start again. You never know. And finally there, I'll reiterate Cooper Duff-Tytler as a forward. Interesting one. He's a unicorn. A ruckman as well, has the height. West Coast ruck situation is interesting. Does he get a go there early? Don't know if he will, but I reckon he'll get games early. And just another one to keep an eye on. Might get a good matchup next year. So there you go, guys. That is every player in every position for AFL Fantasy for 2026. There's a lot more I didn't go through there, but I think I got most of the main ones to keep an eye on. But please let me know who you have your eye on for fantasy in 2026. Keen to see some prices, keen to get into some player profiles soon. Going to be doing a special 50 days of AFL Fantasy starting on Boxing Day this year. It's going to be a player every day for 50 days in the lead up to round one. And yeah, stay tuned for that one. Really keen to just do some quick player profiles and yeah, just put some daily content out soon, guys. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, get keen. It's time to start planning, apparently, by AFL.com standards. So get your draft boards ready. It's going to be an exciting year to come. See you next time.